For the first time in 5 years, Her Interactive released another installment in the Nancy Drew game series. Mysteries of the Seven Keys takes place in Prague when Nancy is given a case to find some missing jewels. As the game progresses, Nancy realizes that this goes deeper than a necklace when she discovers the world of computer hacking and the history of the city's lost treasure. How does it compare to the other previous games? I'll be dividing this into 3 categories: the gameplay features, where I will talk about some of the difference and improvements compared to the older games, the strengths and weaknesses of the games, and finally what changes I hope to see for future releases, because I really do hope that this is the start of more Her Interactive. Also, a reminder that these are my personal opinions and I'm not a game developer. These thoughts are merely from a fan's perspective. Chapter 1. Gameplay features. Right off the bat, there are 2 options for players to either play in a first-person mode or the classic point-and-click mode, which I really appreciated. I played the game twice and personally preferred the classic mode, but that could also be because I'm a terrible driver, so take that as you will. The hint hotline makes a return for the junior detective mode, which was helpful, especially in that first gameplay. Its absence in Midnight in Salem was dearly missed. The accessibility feature of having the writing in plain text for all the letters and documents. As someone with dyslexia, this was incredibly helpful. The character dialogue and cutscenes are still skippable, which confused me on my second playthrough when I realized how much I had missed the first time I played. That's totally on me though. Chapter 2. Part A, the strengths. I think there was a good diversity in puzzles. A lot of them made me overthink before realizing that the answer was right in front of me, which in my opinion is one of the best kinds of puzzles. The latte making game was a lot of fun. It was a nice thing to do when I was stumped, but still wanted to feel like I was doing something productive in the game other than wander around. Not sure if I was just bad at dying in Midnight in Salem, or if the second chance feature had just been removed completely, but it makes a comeback in this game, and that always adds a little bit more motivation to the equation, so I liked the return of that feature. While I missed the game closing with a letter to one of Nancy's loved ones, I do think the ending with phone calls to Ned are very sweet, and they put a smile on my face. Part B, the weaknesses. The open map with limited locations made the game feel much smaller. I thought that the roaming feature was cool at first, but after you realize that most of the courtyard is just basically empty, it gets old pretty quick and feels like a waste of time moving from place to place across the lobby. In previous games, you traveled by a map of the city or by clicking on which building you wanted. Personally, I think it would have been better use of time and assets to include a literal map like the previous game, which leads me to my next critique, the extras. While in Midnight in Salem, they had somewhat of a role, either being tourists of the town or protesters, these extras didn't do much other than fill the open space and just stand around like zombies, so there wasn't very much for them to do in that, and it was just felt like a big waste of time to include them. Moving on to the main cast, there weren't as many characters that I actually cared for, in my opinion. There were too many to actually make a compelling impact on the player. I understand that not every character has to be this masterpiece, and that more than likely these extra characters were created to be more suspects, but in previous games where we only had 3 to 4 suspects, the mysteries were still difficult enough to crack, and the characters really got to shine more, tell compelling stories like Dexter Egan, although I'll admit I didn't appreciate his story as much until replaying Treasure in the Royal Tower as an adult. We had Jamila, whose depth was really interesting because at the start of the story she's supposed to be like kind of like this bonkers alien enthusiast who had this really compelling backstory. Characters like Joy and Miles, where Miles was like this like quirky little robot, and together they had this very sweet story regarding her father, which I love. Another great example of this is Joseph from the final scene. All characters from fairly small casts with interesting stories. Back when the first initial hints of this game, and we only got to see the interior of the cafe and Elga's tech shop, a lot of us assumed it was going to take place in a mall or something. But I think that Nancy Drew games are best when they are in a limited space like that, so I think having something small like shopping mall or like just like a complex of some kind would be a really good place for a setting for a game, so I would love to see that. Like the 5 suspects tops, If we set it in like an arcade, we could have like Joey at the prize counter, or William, the creepy business owner who won't explain why the mascot suits smell bad. Okay, that one was a joke, but although I think Nancy should solve another murder case in the future. We've only had 2 of those out of the, 34 games. One of my serious desires to see in this game is one that features Carson, a physical character rather than just on the phone. We've heard his voice in a bunch of the games, and especially got to see a lot of depth in his personality in The Silent Spy. So to get and see him as an actual physical character would be great, especially since his context photo in Nancy's phone is just a golf ball, so we would get a full on reveal, and I think that'd be awesome. We're like, okay, so in the next game he goes missing, and then when Nancy finds him, we could get the big reveal of what he looks like at the end of the game. I think that'd be super rewarding, please. Also, I'd love the return of earning currency, even if it's just to get little silly things in the gift shop and not really items that are crucial to the game. Those are always fun, and it scratches my brain. I'd love another game that takes place in River Heights. Well, it's cool seeing all these different places that she traveled. I think that getting to do another hometown mystery would get a little update on Alexei, and see him act as more of a mentor character than a suspect like he was in Alibi and Ashes. I think this would also help tie in a lot of the disconnect between games before this new voice actress and after, because there does seem to be a very distinct separation, even though it's supposed to be the same universe, the same character. So I think that might also help bridge a little bit of that gap. I could go on forever about what changes or story ideas I have for the games in the future, but that's gonna take forever, and this is supposed to be a review of the 7 Keys. So I'm gonna stop that here. Bottom line is, I have so much love and respect for Her Interactive, and this game doesn't make my top 10, but I genuinely hope it does succeed so we get more games in the future, preferably without having to wait about 5+ years.